How's it going, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Mentor Moments. My name is Brayton Wooters, one of your co-hosts, alongside Dr. Michael Keener. On Mentor Moments, we take the time to interview counseling professionals and personal mentors. As you know, this season we've been chatting a lot about leadership, technology, career development, and counseling as a profession.
Providers can look at another provider as a competitor, or they can look at it as we have a shared mission. And so I think it's really important for us to all collaborate.
We hope you enjoy this episode of Mentor Moments and keep tuning in.
All right, on this episode of Mentor Moments, we have Leslie Quarles. So Leslie, can you just give us a little brief history of who you are, your career? How did you end up where you're at?
Sure. Well, as you said, my name is Leslie Quarles, or LQ is what folks in town call me. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I've worked in the field of disability services for 20 plus years, specifically in the areas of employment services and community inclusion. I've worked for two Goodwills, one in Florida, one in Missouri, Best Buddies International. Also, for 10 years, I've served as a program surveyor for CARF International, which is an accreditation agency. And for the last 2 years, I've served as a training associate for the Institute of Community Inclusion.
Well, if that isn't a well-rounded resume, I don't know what is. Tell us some, I don't know, there was such a variety there, like something that you liked about, I don't know, Best Buddies or CARF. These are, again, sort of the analytic side, maybe the CARF and helping with accreditations.
Sure.
Obviously, a long history sort of in obviously disability and employment.
Well, so CARF International is an accreditation agency, and we're made up of 15 plus surveyors who all work in the field. So we are peers, not inspectors. And the way I got into it was working for multiple organizations that were CARF accredited themselves. I was always someone that wasn't scared of paperwork. I'm really detail oriented. I appreciate dotting those I's and crossing those T's, but also I really appreciate innovation in services. And I was always someone that was not nervous to talk to a surveyor because I wanted to brag on my organization. And so at some point along the way, we had a VP that suggested that I might enjoy it. And I absolutely had the chance to go all over the United States, a few times in British Columbia. And I always come back excited seeing things happen that are innovative, whether it's the middle of Iowa or Boston, Massachusetts. And with ICI, I have gotten to take my experience of being a provider for 20 years of employment services and community inclusion. I've actually gotten to take that to a training role. So I'm assigned to providers in Greater St. Louis and Southeast Missouri, where I go out and support organizations as they build their programs, and also provide that same type of training and support to TCMs, or targeted case managers.
I hope everybody who's a provider out there, listens to you and sort of takes that, that approach that, yes, accreditation can be sort of a daunting task, but your approach of sort of looking at it, obviously, as a strength-based, or how it can help me and help the agency and sort of come back being rejuvenated. I think that's such a awesome approach. So I hope people can sort of take that to heart and maybe risk a little bit, maybe stretch themselves a bit and say, hey, yes, I can, because it's sort of a win-win, right? You're helping the other agency, and then you can kind of bring it back to you as well.
Oh, absolutely. I see so many wonderful things, tools that folks have created, implementation of plain language. And I'm not shy about asking an organization if they would mind sharing that with me, so I can share that with another organization. I can say, look, this is a really great consumer handbook, and what you've got is already great, but here's an example of how to kind of reformat things so it's more accessible to the people you serve.
I hear, it seems like a lot of your role is just collaborating. Would you agree with that? Would you say that that's been a huge piece of maybe who you are as a big collaborator?
I would agree. I I would say that I have a little bit of a mentoring relationship going on with Beth Dauber, who's known as a connector within the state of Missouri and beyond. I also really appreciated your episode on 10 reasons to be a joiner in 2024. I took some notes actually during that episode. So I think all of the points you made during that episode are things that really spoke to my heart and are how I view work. I think it's important to stay current and, just really work with everyone, because providers can look at another provider as a competitor, or they can look at it as we have a shared mission. And so I think it's really important for us to all collaborate.
That
I
might
love
be
that.
the
I was
hook
going to say,
line.
there's the soundbite.
Right,
Yeah.
there's a soundbite for the podcast.
Hashtag
Yeah.
shared mission.
Right.
That warms the heart hearing that. So awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So recently we understand that your focus has been on Employment First Missouri, that initiative. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what that's all about?
Sure. Well, Employment First is a national framework. And the philosophy is that we believe that people with disabilities, regardless of the significance, have not only the right to work, but the ability to work and be an active and contributing member of their community. And so how that trickles down to the states, you can actually take a look at the APSE website, and it shows the whole map of the country, and you can click on each state and see how each state is implementing that and how far along they are in this process. In Missouri, Employment First is an initiative of the Department of Mental Health's Division of Developmental Disabilities. So my coworkers, we all partner together in supporting organizations and TCMs as they try to build their capacity. And ultimately, we want to see a change in the numbers of people with disabilities that are employed. We want to increase those opportunities. We want to help people with assistive technology, and we want to actually support them in providing individualized services so that we look at the person in a kind of a holistic sense. So work doesn't have to completely replace something else, but it sure can play an important part of their week.
I mean, 100%. I mean, really, that's how our podcast maybe evolved or originated from, again, the American culture, how American culture places such a value on purpose and work and what that means for an individual and self-efficacy and being a full member of society. And so again, that, let's get people in competitive employment and being an, again, active contributor and being fully included into all aspects of society.
Right. Let's give them spending power.
Yeah. In my years here at Maryville, I think that way of looking at employment from understanding, let's coalesce people with disabilities to understand that they do have buying power and their dollars can make a change, help with societal change. And, I see so much more emphasis on sort of the human, including people from HR, in the hiring process and again, taking it, from that economic perspective.
Right. One of the most charming phone calls I've ever had from an employer was someone that reached out that said, "You told me to call you if there's ever a problem. It's not really a problem, but I hope it's okay for me to talk to you about it." And it went through this whole thing. But the quote problem was that from this individual getting out of the house and starting to work a lot, he had lost a lot of weight. And so his pants were falling off of him. And the employer said, I've kind of tried to gently hint that maybe he should buy some pants. And I said, no, let me come and I'm going to model for you how to have that conversation with him in a more frank way. And so when I turned to the individual after we discussed, yes, you need to buy new pants and a belt on Saturday. And you need to try them on and this whole thing. I said, "Do you need help in paying for those?" And he said, "Nope, I've got it. I've got money in the bank. I can buy my own pants." And that was just so impactful, And the employer learned what type of communication and instruction would benefit that person.
I love the steps that you take in situations like these. And you said it yourself, modeling. That's such a huge piece that I think sometimes gets overlooked in these kinds of roles where setting that example of how to communicate, how to, set those standards for those individuals that maybe don't have that kind of knowledge is so important. I think that sometimes gets overlooked a lot.
So I'm wondering where, I mean, you mentioned APSI and are there other places or that our listeners can sort of check out if they want to learn more about Employment First sort of initiatives, again, not only locally, but across the state? And if you could share any of those, and obviously if you want to send us some websites, we'll put that in the description of the podcast as well.
I think a great place to start, no matter where someone lives, is my own organization's website, ICI's website, which is communityinclusion.org. So it's www.communityinclusion.org. It gives information on the 3 national hubs, kind of their areas of emphasis that they have, which are Think Work, Think College, and Explore BR. Obviously, I work in the employment realm. And so there's also a lot of information about the projects that they do internationally. There's great information about community life engagement, how you can embed that to all of your services. So I think that's a great place to start. Obviously, APSI, maybe listen to some of those other Mentor Moments episodes or some of those podcasts that we were talking about earlier. But also I would say if you're in Missouri, join Missouri APSI. If you're somewhere else in the country, join APSI so you can stay on top of legislation and how that's trickling down into your areas. And also look for local networking opportunities, advocacy opportunities, MRA or Missouri Rehab Association, Nexus groups, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's just great to hear how much local and national resources are out there for people to get, again, further involved.
Yeah. So ICI, I mean, it's part of University of Massachusetts, Boston. And so, we all gathered in Boston in April, my coworkers from 20 plus states and a couple of other countries. And it was just amazing to learn about the global reach that they have, that impact the projects that they're working on. I feel so honored to have a very tiny part of the work that they're doing. And it was so incredible to learn how everything that we're working on all has that shared mission that I mentioned before.
I really wish sometimes that we had a video component to our podcast so people could really see your face light up when you're talking about your mission, Leslie. It is again, inspiring, heartwarming, and we're doing good work. So let's continue to do so. So,
I mean, in doing this kind of work, we love to ask our guests kind of what were those moments that led you to where you are now? Were there any big impactful moments, maybe in previous employment experiences, or maybe current ones that have really kind of shaped where you are now? What would you say you learned from those experiences?
Well, first of all, disability has personally impacted myself and people in my family and friends. And so I think those are seeds that get planted along the way that lead to your career journey. And so, I think that's played a really large part that's led me to where I am. I've been lucky to have, a couple of adventures in life, where you got to move to a new place and you have to put down new roots and kind of learn your way around and figure out how services and funding work where you are. And so sometimes something that seemed a little scary or challenging has turned out to be the place where I met one of my best friends or someone that continues to be a mentor to me today. I've had a lot of really great mentors. I've had a direct supervisor that was an incredible mentor, someone that works for a funding source. And now that I'm a little older, I'm hoping that I can pay that forward a little bit. I've got a couple of situations where I'm maybe kind of mentoring someone else, and it's just really, really meaningful to me.
That's awesome. And again, that's, kind of season 2, we really tried to sort of examine, how can we help people in whatever career stage that they are maximize that stage? And I just, again, hear you saying that at this point, there is a certain amount of joy or even greater joy when you get to mentor or make those connections. And so I guess I'm pleased that you're doing that and continue to do that. And so if you're looking for a mentor, right, LQ is ready. She's ready to take on some more people.
So my phone rang today, and it was someone who I consider a very close friend who works on the funding side of the state. And she was just telling me about something that she was really excited about, a good part of her day, a success story that she saw. And I make those same phone calls to her. So I think that I would say that's something that is a repeated surprise to me, in that I'm still excited. We still see so much progress happening. I think Missouri is making a lot of headway. I think there's some magic happening here. I really do.
I would love to learn a little bit more about that. I was going to ask that, have there been any like maybe success stories, things maybe employment first related that come to mind of like, oh yeah, this is like a great example of something that has been super impactful that I've seen.
I think what's really cool is when you see that someone who believes that they cannot work or is nervous or scared about dipping their toe in the water, if you were to just ask them a yes or no question, do you want to work in the community? They may tell you no because they're lacking agency, or they've been told in the past that they can't. And so those are the most meaningful success stories to me, is that you see someone that has not worked competitively before, but they are now. And that opens up so much increased independence for them. They make friends they didn't have before. They're increasing their social capital. They've learned how to take the bus to work, and they realize there's this restaurant next to where they work. So then they think, hey, I could venture next door, and then I could take the bus a little bit further. It just completely widens someone's world. If you were to Google and look for a graphic of social capital, half of the examples on that graphic most likely are going to come from the world of work. So if people are not working, they're missing out on so many opportunities. And that I can't even tell you one example, because I see 10 of those every day.
That's a great answer. I love that answer.
Well, it also makes me think about, the career theory planned happenstance. I'm sure I've talked about it before on the podcast, where, we can only plan so much, and then these chance events happens. And what you said exactly, okay, yeah, I can get this job, and okay, who knows who I'm going to meet or where it will lead to, or as your example, the restaurant, or then making a friend at the restaurant, or again, just another example, Leslie, that you did, just sort of letting us know you listened to the podcast and sort of, hey, reaching out and said, oh, well, great, let's get you on the podcast. Let's go.
Mistake.
So again, just try, just reach, just ask. You never know what's going to happen. So we're just happy, we can continue to do this and share the good work of people. So.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I love what I do, and everybody I work with is wonderful.
Well, it's your time now to shine even more, Leslie. So can you provide, our listeners with your mentor moment? Do you have a task or something to think about, reflect on, homework? What advice or what mentoring can you provide?
I would like to offer a mushy example and a concrete example, because my first example might turn someone off, but I would still encourage you to try it. So if you've ever heard of a gratitude journal, I don't mean going to the store, buying a leather-bound book that says journal and writing long form in it every day. I mean just putting a sentence or a two in your Outlook calendar of something good that happened that day. And then at the end of the year, go back and read those. That's all I would do when you're looking at how you've progressed and all the success stories that have happened throughout the year. So I would say do that. If that's too cheesy for you, then I would say go out and seek every opportunity for professional development that includes an element of networking. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, create one. And if you do, keep it updated, because that's how I got my most recent job, was through LinkedIn and through networking.
You hit it on the head, just as you said, sort of an effective and one where, again, really to kind of help us track about all the positive work we've done with the Gratitude Journal. And then, as you said, the concrete, very tangible, very development appropriate. So we thank you.
Well, you're welcome. This was fun. It wasn't as terrible as I thought it would be.
Maybe that's the cue. It's not, this episode is not as terrible as I thought it would be.
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Mentor Moments. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere that you're listening to this podcast. Be sure to follow us at Mentor Moments on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And we will see you on the next episode of Mentor Moments.
Are you ready for a career that makes a difference in your community? Consider becoming a counselor with Missouri Vocational Rehabilitation.
Vocational Rehabilitation Counselor helps people who have disabilities find a career path that helps to use their strengths. When people have the supports that they need, it makes anything possible.
I am proud that I'm able to help people change their life and reach for their dream goals.
Discover the change you can make. Visit mvr.mo.gov to get started.